A Chymicall Treatise. By Arnoldus de Nova Villa. A Chymicall Treatise of the ancient and highly illuminated philosopher, Devine and Physitian, Arnoldus de Nova Villa. Transcribed from Bodleian Library, MS Ashmole 1415, pages 130-146, by Hereward Tilton. Here begins Mr. Arnold de Nova Villa's treatise. He speaks to his scholars thus: "Know, my dear son, that this is a book of the secrets of nature, and I shall divide it into 6 parts. In the first discourse what the stone is, secondly why the stone is natural, thirdly why the stone is animal like our blood, fourthly why it is called herbal or radical, fifthly I'll relate its true and constant preparation. And sixthly I shall truly and without lies give you an account of the augmentation of our growing stone, to the end that fools may be derided, and wise and understanding men taught. This art is nothing else but a knowing of the secret and hid things of natural masters and lovers of the natural art and wisdom, therefore no body should approach to this art, unless he has heard before some logic, which teaches to distinguish truth from falsehood, and withal the natural art which teaches the things of nature, and the property of the elements, otherwise he troubles his mind and body and life in vain. It is a stone and no stone, and is found by every body in plain fields, on mountains, and in the water, and is called albida. Herein all physicians agree, for they say that albida is called rebio, they name it in hid and secret words, because they perfectly understand the mater I am. Some say it is blood, others say it is man's hair, others say it is eggs, which has made many fools and unwise men, that understand no more than the letter, and the mere sound of words. Seek this art in blood, in eggs, in hair, in the gall, in alum, in salt, but they have found nothing, for they did not rightly understand the sayings of naturalists, who spake their words in hid language. Should they have spoken out plainly, they would have done very ill for divers reason, for all men would have used this art and the whole world would have been spoiled, and all agriculture perished. Seeing it is so that a man must give an account of his works, I desire God, that he would give me reason, and wisdom, and direct me how I may estrange or conceal this noble art from fools, which made me say what this stone is. Know, my son, that our stone, as Hermes speaks, is in a living thing, out of which saying the true attempt of this art may be known, and because of this saying some according to their folly have sought this stone in beasts, in herbs, in alum. But they have remained fools. Now I'll tell you what our stone is: Sol, Luna, Azoth. Now there are 3 stones and they are dead upon earth, and end the thing afore in Lunam by the careful understanding and preparation of man. Out of this stone is made true gold and silver, the same with natural. The scholar said, how can this be? For the philosophers say that art is weaker than nature, and you say, out of that stone is made gold and silver, the same with natural. The master answered, we do not make it, as nature makes it, but we help nature with our art, in which respect it is natural and not artificial. There are 3 things in the natural art and wisdom, as Hermes says: when the stone is in a thing that has a soul, as the soul is spiritual when it goes away in smoke, for which cause it's called a fugitive servant, and a finite spirit. For in the world there is no other spirit to this art, and it is of an airy nature, which is a sign of perfection, and that it is not in salt or alum. He is not wise that seeks in a thing what is not in it, and because neither gold nor silver is in alum or salt, we must not seek them there, but in such things where gold and silver is to be found. But that our stone is not in beasts, hear how Hermes saith. All things are made according to their nature. Out of man another man is made, and out of a living creature another living creature is produced, and one thing produceth another like itself. How then can the medicine help man, it being not fit for man? The master answers thus: understand the sayings of wise men. The medicines which are given to man do not make man, but drive away his distempers, and so it is here. Our medicine given to him to whom we ought to give it, makes true gold and silver which is subject to no defect, and changes the man into the woman, and the woman into the man, and the man into an angel. How can that be, saith the scholar? Thou hast heard it in the preparation only. Perceive well the words of the naturalists, and be wise and not unwise. It being necessary that our stone must be of an incombustible nature and matter, it is evident that it is not found in salt. or animals, or any of the other mentioned, but that mercury is alone an incombustible spirit, and therefore necessarily must be an object of our science. So then it is manifest what the stone is, and how much, and how it is not. Know, my son, that our stone is natural, for many reasons. First, it is natural because nature in the like manner makes man and woman, as the wise may know, but the unwise doth not understand this. Secondly, it is called natural by Hermes, the father of all naturalists, a man who is to be believed. Thirdly, the medicine is found naturally, the things which are under the circle of the moon being 4 elements. And therefore our stone is joined together by the 4 elements, and among the 4 elements one is cold, another dry, some warm, some moist. The scholar here saith, then our stone is cold, moist, dry and hot. The master answers, understand plainly. The 7 planets are stones. Mercury is warm and dry because of the sun, cold and moist because of the moon, for he is of the nature of water, of air, of earth and of fire. Therefore he is as the thing to which you joined him, good with the good, and bad with the bad, which makes Aristotle say, when thou hast water out of the air, and air out of the fire, and fire out of the earth, open thy ears and understand the sayings of the wise, then thou hast the whole art. Know, my son, that our stone is animal-like. The scholar saith, what is the reason of this? The master replies, because he hath a spirit, and therefore a soul which makes it animal-like. The scholar, how hath it a soul? The master, dost not thou know that there are 4 spirits, sulphur, arsenicum, salmoniac, and mercurius? You see it is under the number of these 4 spirits, and therefore it is a spirit, and a soul. And because it is a soul it must needs be animal-like, for animals have souls. Hereabouts mark well, as I have told thee of spirits and of the soul and of the animal-like to the animal-like, this is the reason why our stone is animal-like. And Hermes in Libro Senator saith, our stone is of a thing that hath a soul, that is of a spirit or fugitive thing, but the fools and unwise men who thought, as some yet think that it is in beasts, find and lose time and labor and spoil both their bodies and goods. The scholar says, why is our stone blood? Because Archeglaus says, take the stone which the ancients bid you take and rub him so long till he be rubbed to blood, that is, till he become red, and because of the redness he is called blood, and when our stone becomes red, then he has in him the nature of fire, and out of it all secrets may be drawn. Mark and perceive what I say, and thou wilt have the whole art. Fools who thought that he was blood, did labor in blood and found nothing. For things are made according to their nature. The natural master says, make out of the stone flesh and blood, that he may be red, and thou wilt have the whole art. Make of the milk that is of white stone flesh and blood, that it may be white like milk and may flow. The scholar saith, how is this stone made white, and how is it made red? The master answers, take the stone and rub him with blood, and it will be red. However, I declare the art to thee otherwise, and clearer. Take the small and inconsiderable and rub it with the most amiable and the best, and it will be made red by the help of the fire. Observe here that the fire causes them to join and purgeth them, and adorns them. But the unwise, who perceive not the speeches of the natural masters, try the art according to the outward letter, and find nothing, and then cry it's a lie, and the art is false, for we have tried it and found nothing. Thus they despair, and rail against the books and the art. The scholar saith, why is this stone herbal? The master answers, because as the herb hath a movable soul, so our stone hath a soul, for Hermes saith our stone is of a thing having a soul, but the unwise thought it was in herbs yet did not find it there, and so have renounced the art. Some say that mercury should be compounded or coagulated with the herbs, and so have sought him in the herbs and found nothing, yet this I do not say as if the mercurius could not be compounded or coagulated with the herbs. But I say that the coagulation is good for nothing, and when they have thus coagulated him, they think they have done great matters, yet have done nothing that's worth anything, nor finished anything. It being inconstant they talk I can coagulate the mercurius, but they might rather say, I can spoil the mercurius. And what is it that mercurius is to be coagulated with? They make him of herbs, and make so fragile, that he is worth nothing. Mercurius, if he be rightly coagulated he must be as heavy in weight as gold though he be white in color, for the whiteness is a signa of perfection. This done, there needs no more but only to give him the color, and so it is gold. The scholar saith, why is our stone called the red servant? The master answers, because he soon turns red. The scholar, why do the philosophers say, that mercury doth not die, unless it be killed with its brother? The master, Hermes saith that the dragon dies not, unless you kill him with its brother the sun, or sister the moon. Therefore saith Avicenna, make the blind to see, and the seeing blind, and thou wilt have the art. Another saith, in the herbal stone are hair, blood, eggs, and this he said to shew in these words, the four elements, believe not me but the natural philosophers, who may be believed, nor given credit to common foolish recipes. For those that have made recipes found nothing of this art, but they had some books of the philosophers, who speak in riddles of this art, for they framed these books with such hid words as with alum and salt. And with other things unintelligible to the simple, though intelligible enough to the prudent, that they have deceived the whole world. I saw a monk who had labored in this art very near 20 years, and could find nothing notwithstanding of this, however like a base rascal he made a book which he called, The Flowers of Paradise, in which were above 100 recipes. And this book he suffered to come into every man's hand, and by these means much people was deceived, for he was a coxcomb and knew nothing. In this chapter one will teach the preparation of the philosopher's stone, but the way of its preparation which I know, I have not of myself, but a part of this labor, I have of one of my brethren, and a part of a German monk. Therefore I desire God that he take away from me the sin of envy, that I may bring every body into the way of truth. In the beginning of this labor, I'll say, that the most excellent Hermes teaches the way in plain words to rational men, but in occult and hid speeches to the unwise and fools. I say that the Father, Son and Holy Ghost are one, and yet three, so speaking of our stone I say three are one, and yet are divided. Mark well, the world was lost by a woman, therefore necessarily must it be restored by a woman. Take therefore the mother very pure and lay her into a bed with the servant, and put them up close into a prison, till they be purified of their sins, and she'll bear a son, which will be a blessing to all people. Signas have been manifested in the sun and in the moon. Then take the sun and beat him that he may be punished and its pride may come down, and he forsake his pride, and abide in humility. Therefore, saith Geber, out of mercury everything is made. The same chapter saith further, the common sulphur is found in Sol and Luna, in mercury more fugitive, in the body water. And the same in another chapter saith, afterward the tincture becomes water, that it may become better in its nature. Therefore take the punished son and lay him into a bed and there he'll begin to delight himself, then take him and give him to the Jews to be crucified. Being crucified he grows pale, then take him, and turn him, and if you cannot see him well, you take away the veil from the temple, whereupon a great earthquake ariseth and you'll see various changes. And he'll leap up and down because of his great tortures, then he'll fall down. Therefore stir him below more, and he'll give up the ghost. Thus all necessary things are accomplished, and many workmen have erred in this. The scholar said, these words I understand not. The master answered, I must necessarily hide the secrets of the natural art, as other natural masters have done, for it is not with this art as it is with others. Hence it is said, whatsoever is written for our learning, that through patience and comfort of the Holy Ghost, we may have the Scripture. Amen. I came one day into a great master's house to recreate myself with him in this art for sport, yet with magisterial words, and I sat at his right side, there were 2 men with him. The one I knew, but the other I did not know. These 2 began to speak of this art, neither being ashamed of me, nor taking any care of me. Then understood I by their speeches that which I had sought a great while. Yet did they wonder what I sought there and were amazed at the speech, which they had had together. Then turned the honest old man his face towards me and said, the wise and prudent Mercurius, to speak the common way, is comprehended in these words. Take lead and whatsoever is like lead, and take as off. This is the right ordering of the art, which the Egyptians have acknowledged, and that's their riddle, their reason, their virtue, and their meekness. Here are 4 things, 2 are manifest which he named the lead, and that which is like lead. Then said one of the men, How many are the things? To which the other said, There are 4, and said moreover, These art words of the prudent and wise, and have a dark obscurity in them, and are taken out of the apparent sentences of the wise. Then the one asked, How is this? To which the other answering said, The wise man understands but 2. The one asked again, Which are they 2? The man answered and said, The hidden thing. After this he adds 2 words, and they signify 4, and 4 signify but 2, and he changed the words of the wise before mentioned and said 4. And the wise men say but 2. Then he answered and said, as it was said before, In these words is a hidden obscurity, and they are taken out of the illustrious sayings of the wise. Hereby means the master nothing else than that out of the 4 things 2 should be set together, man and wife. And having thus used diverse words among the rest, he said, Take fire and water, and mingle these 2 together, and there will be one thing out of it. After this he said, Take lead, and that which resembles lead, and he changed these words and said, Take Azoth, and that which resembles Azoth. With such hidden words do they hide their words to all unwise men. Perceive therefore and trust God, that thou mayst perceive the better the aforesaid saying of the wise. Of this I'll give thee an example. When the master saith, Take lead, according to a philosophical sense or meaning. The word lead is a manly name and word, and so one of the number of the names of men. Hereby mayst thou truly know the name of the man. And he saith further, That which resembles lead, that is, that which resembles the man. So he hides the name of the woman, and the reason why he mentions the man's name first is because she is of him, and not he of her. Therefore said the master, That which resembles lead. After this one said, Take Azoth, and that which resembles Azoth. The masters hereby mean the wife. Here he names the woman, and mentions not the name of the man, for he had named him before in the beginning of these words, where he saith, Take Adam and what resembles Adam. Afterwards he changeth this speech again, to make it more occult to him that is not altogether wise, and said, Take Eva, and what resembles Eva. Here thou namest Eva and not the man, and this thou doest, because thou didst begin in the first speech with the man. That these speeches do not at all hinder a wise man in his reason, but make him more ingenious, and more intelligent. When they had talked together a great while, they began again in a great fear another way and language. Mingle the warm with the cold, for so an equal mixture will arise out of it, which is neither warm nor cold, and mix the moist with the dry, and you lo have an equal mixture, which is neither moist nor dry. The speech now uttered, is manifest from 4 things, and out of these 4 are numbered and terminated man and wife. The man is hot and dry, the wife cold and moist, but when they come together, and unite themselves naturally, there is made an equal mixture of the warm and the cold, of the moist with the dry. And of this a wise philosopher doth not doubt, and the artificial conjunction cannot be unless the things belonging thereunto be totally prepared, every one according to its kind. For as Joseph saith, Mix together fire and water, and there will be 2, mix together air and earth, and there will be 4, afterward of 4 make 1, then thou art come to what thou wouldst be att. And when this is done, make out of that body a non-corpus, that is a spirit, as out of the non-corpus or spirit make a body again, which may be constant on the fire, and not remove any way from it. Already, thou hast comprehended the wisdom. Do in this as Joseph hath said. Before thou beginnest the labor of this artificial treasure which is true, prepare all things, each in their kind and nature, begin thence to the end, and when thou hast done this thou hast made a water which is warm and not warm, cold and not cold, moist and not moist, dry and not dry according to its nature, and it is fixed, that it cannot fly, and it is the thing which reveals and opens to thee the tincture, and if it were not for this artificial water, all hope would be in vain. When the masters speak here and there, they still come to this noble water. The reason is because that water is a medium between the contrary things, this comes from thence, and it is water and no water, fire and no fire, air and no air, earth and no earth. Because then it is and is not, according to its noble nature it is a right medium between the unlimited elements. This noble water is the beginning, middle and end of this noble art, perceive this speech well together with the former. For the masters speak commonly one thing, and mean it in another sense, and where they spake most hiddenly and most profoundly, there they do mean it most simply. And where they speak most plainly and openly then they do hide most this divine and noble art. Out of this speech in sentences it is manifest, that this art may be taught with all it secretes in a few words, nor will any man be found in time to come, that will say so much in writing as is said here. Unless one should show it to the other with hand and mouth and revealed and opened all to him, for the philosophers have unwillingly discovered this amiable truth, and have reserved it to themselves and taken it with them down to the grave. And what in other books is taught by examples and circumstances, that is expressed here clearly, and thus this noble art is written by me truly and sincerely. Therefore that my name and memory may for ever remain upon the earth, I have written this small book and made it by the help of the Holy Ghost, for all posterities and children of God and of this art. One time I sate alone in my chamber with my wife, and read the books of the ancient deceased philosophers, and those also that have lived in my time, and there I found written something of alchemy and xandrit. And of other strange words and things whereby one may turn every man from the right way, and he that matters it loses his time, goods and substance and last his health, and miserably robs himself of life. And that thou mayest believe me the better I tell the whole truth, that no man can attain unto this art unless he retires from the world and converses with his equals, and join himself to them, and though every one says that he reveals it. Yet however all hide it as thou sayest by me that I do reveal it, but not to the unwise and foolish. And if I truly discover this divine art, my book will be so profitable to them, that the books of wise men and my words will be the same, my words theirs, and theirs mine. Not that I would steal their words from them and make them mine own, this would be unjust, but only my meaning agrees with theirs, and theirs again with me. Therefore whosoever will find out the secrets of this art, let him read this book and understanding. And why? Because this book is clear and known to understanding men and to those that observe carefully and read with attention in it, but to the unwise and unexpert, and those that are not diligent it must needs be hid as it is from children. Know then, that there art many who labor hard in the preparation of sulphur, and in the sublimation of arsenicum, which art combustible and corruptible. These men only look to the words which they read or hear, and not to the hidden sense that is in those words. For truly the sulphur, arsenicum, or a pigment, xandrit, vibric, mercurius, salt, saltpeter, solipculi, salmiac and alum signify in this noble art in truth nothing but water, and the making white the philosophers talk of is nothing else but the purification of the water that it may be clearer and purer, and by the sublimation or exaltation understand nothing else. But the ascension of the vapor from the water in the cucurbit below and above in the alembic and again through the canales laterals in the cucurbit and again through the canales laterals. And by the washing understand the bodies changing into water so long till out of the water a part in it of the manifold vapors ascends, and falling down again are coagulated and consolidated that it may never rise again. And the reason hereof is because the corporeal spirit in the spiritual and the spiritual again in the corporeal has mixed and soaked itself, and because the spiritual spirit is stronger than the corporeal spirit. They both are vaporous and elevate themselves in the height of the alembic. But when the corporeal spirit overcomes the spiritual he must necessarily remain with him at the bottom in the cucurbit. And when they have united themselves the spiritual ghost which is penetrable makes the corporeal spirit together with himself penetrable and permeable, for the corporeal spirit has in him the tincture, that is, the red and white color. And with all the spiritual spirit leads the corporeal in and without hindrance just as a man does go through a house with an open door, and is not spied by any, so it is here. But this cannot be unless the body that will draw the spirit out of the man, be totally cleansed from all impurity, and thereby the leprosy of the whole from the whole be perceived. Understand this, that is, that ashes be drawn and made, for thus the bodies are deprived of lustiness and moistness, and so the body may first become spiritual, when the body is turned to ashes according to its highest purification. And out of those ashes be made a lixivium, in that waterish nature the body becomes spiritual. And understand this secret, how the body has the ashes in it, and in the ashes is the stone, and the stone is the spirit, and in the spirit there is the tincture or color, and in the tincture the soul, and the soul had in her a fiery permeation, and leads with her the color in the body. And he that does not understand how he shall begin this, how will he come to the middle, or to the end? Therefore thus speak all masters, it is one body, and yet there are many bodies, and those many are no more than one body. This understand also, it is one body, because it is not beaten as soon as it is turned into ashes. Each singular dust is a singular body, and when the ashes are turned into water it is a water and no water, and may with artificial industry be returned into a body. But before this the body must often rest in the belly of the wind under the height of the heavens. And therefore the masters say it is a stone, and resembles the eagle's stone, for the eagle's stone is such a stone that in his belly there is another stone, and if you will pull it out from thence, you must turn the stone into ashes. And out of the ashes there is first another stone made, and when that stone does sweat right, its own water is made of it, and when he has well sweated, he drinks the sweaty water again into him, and flies afterwards up and down. And from the great motion which he does force up above his mass in the air, the water becomes of itself again a stone, and by the paraphrase of the eagle, understand the evaporation of the vaporous spirit. And by their redescension understand the heavy falling down of the body. Yet there are many who call the aforesaid ashes a sour mass or a leaven, but they know not their water, that the corporeal nature attracts the coagulated nature out of those ashes. Moreover, says Master Joseph, their spirit is the fusion of both bodies. By this he does not mean the dissolutions of the bodies on the fire, but he means that they should be turned into mercury. And that out of the mercury the flowers should be extracted, and this is the stone whereof Aristotle spoke to his king. Did men know what a great treasure they had in Saturnus, they would not give it for a small sum of money. But they would make so much gain by it, that one might bring the whole world into his subjection. And another master said, take the things as they come out of their treasury, and lift them up in the highest mountains, and humble them again from the highest mountains to their roots. These are the wisest words which he has spoken openly without all envy and without any secrecy, and afterward he hath not named the things he meant, in the height of the mountains and by the roots. For as in mountains natural gold is made, and in the ground, so in this art, our gold is made in the height of the alembic, and in the root that is in the cucurbit. And this is a cleanly similitude which may easily be perceived, and hereby you may understand, when the masters speak of the high mountains or the deep grounds, that they do not mean the heads of men or their feet, so when they speak of hair and of blood, they only understand the resemblance of them. Therefore many men are deceived, which look after the literal sense and seek it where it is not to be found. For this art is so noble that it must be sought and found out in itself, and no thing like to it. As out of a man is made another man, so out of one noble metal is made another metal, and there is no transmutation, as some idle and simple men think. Who doth not mollify and harden again doth err, therefore make the earth black, and separate her soul from her, and the water, after that make it white, that it may become as a naked sword, and when it grows white, give it to the covetous fire so long till it grows large, and doth not fly away. He that can do this may well be called happy and exalted in this world, and let him do it in the love of God and in his fear. Amen. The first word in this great work is the body's transmutation into mercury, and this the philosophers have called a dissolution. And this artificial and ingenious dissolving is the bulwark of this art. Hence saith Rosary, unless you dissolve the bodies, your labor is in vain. Therefore the dissolving of philosophers is not a drinking in but the body's transmutation into water. Nor is it called a philosophical dissolving unless it becomes clear as mercury, so thou wilt have an element, which is the water. The second word is that it be purified and filled with its terra. Of this speaks Morienus, let the earth be filled with its water, and let it be cleansed with it, and when it is purified on both sides it ends the whole art. Aristotle says in general, put the dry to the moist, the dry is the terra, the moist is the water, thus thou hast earth and water each by itself, and the earth is purified with the water, and when they are cleansed one with the other. Thou hast colours clearer than before, therefore says Rosarius in general, if one by day sees many stars in the heavens, the sun is hindered of its lustre by moon, and when that does vanish the sun shines clearer than before. The third word, that the water does lift itself in vapours which is condensed and coagulated of the earth, and thick, that is that it makes itself spiritual in the air, and so thou hast water, earth and air. And while it hovers in the air Archelos calls it the great master Hermes's bird by way of similitude. Therefore says Alberius, make him white, or white him with the nimbleness of the fire, so long till out of him arises the spirit which is called Hermes's bird, so the earth will remain cinerated in the ground which is of a fiery nature. So thou hast 4 elements in the earth which did remain in the ground, and it is the fire. Hence Morinus, the earth which remains in the ground, thou must not at all despise nor vilify, understand the earth of the body, and that same earth is the right end of the permanent and constant things. After that with a good water thou must anoint and irrigate the leaven, and the leaven is called by the philosophers a soul. They call also the prepared body a leaven, for as a leaven does make other bread sour, so does this thing, and I tell thee freely, that there is no other leaven but gold and silver, of necessity must the leaven be leavened in the body. For the leaven is the soul of the body, and therefore says Morinus, unless you purify the unclean body, and create in him a new soul, you have perceived less than nothing in this art. Likewise says Arnoldus, the spirit changes into the body, and cleanses and eterniseth him, about this the spirit does tie himself, and the clear permeations of the soul which here is mentioned is a leaven, and rejoices with the body. Because it has cleansed itself with him and now the nature is changed so that the grosser things stay behind there. Says Ascanos in Tuba Philosophorum, the spirit is not joined to the body unless before it be totally purified from all uncleanness, but in the conjunction, the greatest miracles are made evident. For there are seen all the colours that a man can think of. And when the colours begin to be lighter and lighter so that thou sayest sometimes only as it were a little spark and begins to rejoice therein from thy heart and soul, then take heed, for our Basilisk prepares himself who kills men more for joy. Which they conceive from him then for his poison lasts but a moment, that is when the supreme power or the quintessence of the elements does discover itself in so many ways and colours, and the last is done in a moment. When this is done thou sayest the sun and moon shine lovely in the heaven of his own water, and begins to rejoice but then go away lest thou losest thy life for joy. And thus the imperfect body is coloured with his best colours because of the power of the heaven, and the heaven is the soul, and the spirit is with the help of the soul joined to the body, and are tied one with the other. And the body is changed to the colour of the leaven and becomes eternally good. Out of the words prescribed and said any understanding man may know that the philosophers in dark and hidden wards have hid of the whole art, for they say our stone is of 4 elements, and that's a great truth. For they have compared them with 4 elements whereof we have said enough, and one may know the elements by the colours, he that knows it, and is acquainted with it. Some philosophers have said that our stone is of a body, of a soul, and of a spirit, and they have said true, and we do yield, and they give to the perfect body what he had not before, and it brings him into a better spirit. The soul brings into the imperfect body a constant spirit, which is not at all fugitive before the air, and therefore it keeps its colour and weight unchangeably, and the more you drive it the more noble it becomes both in colour and weight. Some also say unless you change the bodies into no bodies, and the nobodies again into bodies, you are not come yet to the right art. For the body becomes first an aqua mercury incorporeal and afterwards the water and the spirit in the changing, and so both become one body. Some also say change the natures quite and clean and you will find what you seek. And that's true, for we make of that which is gross a subtle and quick thing, and of a body we make water, and of that which is moist we make a dry thing, of the water we make the earth. And thus we change the true natures and make of that which is corporal a spiritual thing and of a spiritual a corporal thing, and we make that which is above like that which is below, and that which is below like that which is above. The spirit is turned to a body, and the body to a spirit. And therefore it said in the beginning, the Word was a spirit, and that Word the Spirit was with God, that is with himself, and God was that Word, he himself was the Spirit, and the Word the Spirit was made flesh. The Spirit has assumed the true body, and so that above became true as that below, the Spirit has become a metallic in the body, and that which was below, that is, the body, is become metallic with the Spirit. And thus it is well known that our stone is out of the elements, and it is a body, a soul, a spirit, and not two spirits, one soul and not two souls. And the saying of philosophers is true who say our stone is made but of one thing, and therein they have said very true, for it is made only of water. And in the water and out of the water our whole art hath an end, for it dissolves the bodies with the dissolution aforementioned. Not with such a dissolution as unwise men fancy, that our stone should be changed into water, but it's dissolved with the true natural dissolution, so that he is changed into such a water as it was from the beginning before it was a body. And that very water incinerates and turns the body again to earth into ashes, and makes them penetrable, and does whiten and purify them, as Morainus says, Azoth and the fire purifies latinum, and take all his darkness away. Latent and impure body set together of gold and silver, Azoth and mercury, and that two distinct bodies join the fire and Azoth together when they are ready, as is said before, that no attempt against the fire or other attempts can part them one from the other, and that same water does not sublimate neither does it exalt itself with a sublimation of fools or exaltation as they imagine, but with the wise and understanding sublimation or exaltation. For our sublimation is making a noble thing out of an ignoble, therefore fools take the shaved bodies and make them ascend by the heat of the fire, and mingle them with an impure spirit, as with arsenic and salmiac. And they make a strong fire under it whereby the bodies ascend with the spirit, and then they say now are the bodies sublimated. Whereas they are quite killed, for why they find the bodies impure. Therefore observe that our sublimation is not driving on and ascending, but the making of a dry thing incorrupted a sound one, a great and high one, and changing it into another nature, and making on a sudden sublime vapors, and all this does our water together. And so understand our sublimation and not otherwise, and take heed of the sublimation of fools, wherewith many are deceived. Mark, our water at first kills and makes alive again, and it makes white the black color, when it's changed to earth, after that innumerable colors reflect from the whiteness and all the colors last end is the white, for at last it turns white. Some call the stone lead, as Gigel speaks, in our lead is the whole art, and if our lead be impure our stone is also impure, while he lies in his mother's womb. Oh, did the lead mongers know the virtue of lead, they would not part with it for so small a price. Some call our stone chief copper or clock mineral, as Eximius speaks in general. Know this all we that seek this art, that no tincture is made without this chief copper or clock mineral, and thus they have given it innumerable names, and yet mean no more but one thing, and this they have done for this reason. That fools should not find it out, for they have named it with all manner of names that can be named, yet they have meant but one thing. And it is no more but one thing, to wit the philosophy call water. Our art is also compared to man-making. The first is the deprivation of its chastity, the second is the conception, the third is the being with child, the fourth is the birth itself, and the fifth is the bringing up of the child born. Understand also these words, our son that comes from the privation of chastity is Mercury, for he is drawn out of a perfect body, so there remains an earth the mother of four elements, and when the earth begins to take somewhat in of Mercury, it's called unchastity, but when the man lies with the wife it's called conception, which without the Mercury is wrought in the earth. This is what the philosophers say, our art is nothing else but that the man lies with his wife, and that they mingle one with the other, so that the water governs and has the mastery, and that the Mercury be more than the earth. And so earth increases and augments. But when the earth becomes a wife she is with child, after that the ferment is added to the imperfect prepared body as is said before, so long till it becomes something in color and in sight, and that's called the birth. So then our stone is born, for the philosophers call him king and say thus, honor your king who comes from the fire crowned with a double crown, bow the knees before him when he comes to his perfect altar. For the sun is his father and the moon his mother, the perfect body is Luna, the perfect body is gold. At last follows the nourishment whereby he is nourished with a great nourishment, he is nourished with his own milk, with the seed in the beginning he is fed, to wit with mercury, till he hath drunk enough of the mercury. Beloved sons, by these things which are told you, you may easily perceive the dark and hidden work of the philosophers, and by that you may know that they all run one way and upon one strain. And that our art is nothing else but what has been said before, the dissolution of bodies and changing of their first matter. How it's made earth and how it becomes a light and spirituous in the air with distilling it because of the moistness which is in it. Thus it becomes lusty in vapors, and the earth remains below incinerated and is of a fiery nature. Thus you have truly the total changing of things and the mingling of the soul with the body and with the spirit. And it assumes such a spiritual and powerful increase that humane reason cannot fathom it, the highest be praised and blessed for it for evermore. Now will I in the name of God make manifest the practice and the very sense of the philosophers how one shall perfect that elixir, that is the augmentation of the true tincture and of silver and gold only out of the mercury of the sages. Or the mineral mercury and in all copper bodies which fall short of perfection, insomuch that they become perfect into a perfect luna and gold above the natural, which is not that common mercury, called by the philosophers prima materia. Waterish hot moist and cold, an element, a constant water, a spirit, a body, a swimming smoke, a blessed water, a water of the wise, a vinegar of philosophers, a dew of heaven, virgin milk, a corporeal mercury. Besides others innumerable names whereby he is called in the books of the philosophers. Although these names sound variously, yet they signify but one thing, to wit the aforesaid Mercurium Philosophorum, for out of him, and in him and by him only are sought all the virtues of the whole art of alchemy. And of the red and white tincture, Q and R. Therefore saith Geber, without mercury the art is not perfected. It is a thing, a stone, a medicine in which lies the art, unto which no outward thing is to be applied, only in the preparation the remaining or superfluous part is to be taken of. Therefore in that and out of that a man may find all things, needful to this art. For it kills itself and revives itself, makes itself hard, makes itself weak, makes itself black, white and red. And the same master in his discourse saith, we add no external thing because of the gold and silver, for these are called not internal things, which are to be adjoined to the mercury, for they are two fellow helpers whereby the whole work of the art is perfected. And another philosopher saith, it is a thing, whereby many have been undone, as a whole multitude was for one man's sake. The mercury is also called a natural root of a high tree out of which innumerable branches grow, and it's called the known stone of the philosophers, and in the books of philosophers the first operation. To the perfection of the aforementioned stone or elixir belongs a sublimation or exaltation which must be brought to purity. And this I shall hereafter without the least covering make manifest. But you must note that this sublimation is nothing less than a purification, for hereby all remaining dross that was in the mercury is purged away, thus this sublimation the inconstant particles are lifted up from the constant. For the inconstant ascend and the constant remain below at the bottom, yet in the operation the inconstant become in part constant, and it's particularly to be noted. He that rightly sublimates our mercury, he hath perfected the whole art, for Master Geber saith, the whole perfection is in the sublimation in the vessel, and in the ordering of the fire. For in the already mentioned sublimation are comprehended all other particulars, which belong to our art and labor, as sublimating, dissolving, ascending, descending, cooling, mollifying, purifying, and perpetuating. Washing and coloring on red and white. All is done in a vessel in order in an oven, whereof the masters of nature have written much that the art was not to be perfected constantly, on purpose, that the unwise might reach to it. But to the just and to the godly it becomes profitable both here and hereafter. Now make it thus. Take in the name of God the aforementioned mercury or the natural water, the first matter of the sages, take of it as much as you will, and put it into its vessel which must be pure, clear, and clean. And seal it well above with the sigils hermetis, that the mercury may not come out above, and set it in its prepared place, that it may have a moderate heat every moment for a month. The natural master saith that it may have its place warm whereby it works itself up and down, so long till it ascend no more in the glass, and begins to be cool at the bottom, and becomes dry below in the glass without the least moistness. Like a black earth, that is caput corvi, or an earthy dry element, for thus the true sublimation or exaltation of the philosophers is perfected as is said before. And in this sublimation is the true separation of the elements, as the masters say. How do you find this book? Any thoughts about the book or the author? Any suggestion for improvement? Please take a moment to share your thoughts in a comment. If you like it, share it with your friends who might enjoy it as well. Subscribe to keep in touch. Visit CompleteAudiobooks.com for more quality content.